Hello and welcome to Perth Airport, and later today I'm flying to Perth with Virgin Australia on board an Airbus A320. Now I haven't flown that aircraft type with them before, so I thought it might be interesting to see how it goes. I understand they have a lot more legroom than the QantasLink A320s, so that'll be interesting. So let's go and check in. I make videos about planes. If you're into trip reports from flights around Australia and the world, and tours through significant aircraft and museums, then please check out my channel and subscribe. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. Here we are entering Terminal 1 at Perth Airport, which is both the international terminal and the one used for domestic Virgin Australia flights. It's a very bright and spacious area with plenty of self-check-in desks and automatic bag drop machines, although there's also staff ready to help in case you like the traditional way of checking in. I had already checked in online and only had carry-on, so I took off up the escalators to security and then the departure gates for some plane spotting. There's a decent array of cafes, newsagents and tourist shops around, although about half were closed, and I'm not sure if that's a COVID thing or because it was a Saturday. I wandered around to get some filming done and came across this very rare Soviet-era cargo plane. It's a 58-year-old Antonov AN12 and unfortunately was a fair distance away, although cool to see it nonetheless. There's 3 Virgin branded aircraft types that fly out of Perth. The Boeing 737 is operated by the normal Virgin Australia, and then there's Virgin Australia Regional Airlines, or VARA, who operate the 6 Airbus A320s, one of which I'm flying today, and 14 Fokker 100s. They used to fly ATR 72s, and there's a vlog on board one of those on my channel, although they've since retired them. And here's our aircraft, Victor Hotel, Victor November Papa, an Airbus A320-200 that first flew in 2006. It flew initially with Tiger Airways in Singapore before moving to Tiger in Australia, and then in 2018 it was swapped across to VARA. After a bit of a wait, boarding was called and we all trundled on board. Thanks for that. As this aircraft was originally flown with Tiger, inside it's their drab colours rather than the bright, virgin, grey, black and purple and red that we're used to. I would expect that the interior would be changed to Virgin's design, although I suspect it's not currently a priority with the financial downturn thanks to COVID. And here's my seat, 5 Foxtrot. Overhead, there's the air vents, which is something you'll appreciate in a 45-degree West Australian summer's day. There's a tray table, but no TV screen, although I'll mention the streaming entertainment later, and a very decent amount of legroom. In fact, there's 78 centimetres of pitch, which is 7 centimetres more than on the Qantas A320s. There are no power plugs under your seat, just a life vest, and outside there's a great view of the wing and engine. I especially like the signature red stripe on the engine cowling. So Virgin offer in-flight entertainment streaming onto your own device, which excitingly begins as soon as you're on board, so you can start watching as soon as you sit down. Just make sure that you've downloaded the app before you take off, because there's no access to the normal internet once you leave the ground. There was an okay selection of content, although it did drop out halfway through the flight. I must admit that I didn't report it to staff as I was watching something else, so I'm not sure if it remained off for the rest of the flight or if it was just briefly not working. The doors were closed and we backed out. The flaps were put into takeoff configuration, and I'll speak about that later, and we took off to the runway.
Welcome aboard. It's great to have you with us. At Virgin Australia, your health and safety come first.
It was a beautiful day for flying in Western Australia, and some of the in-flight views you'll be seeing later were stunning, especially the landing into Broome. Once we left the greener farming regions, the land became really arid with these dry lakes and riverbeds and a whole lot of dirt. While it's probably not particularly hospitable down there, it certainly looks interesting from 35,000 feet. There's just something about flying over the outback Australia that makes you think that you're on another planet. Having never been to Mars myself, this is what I imagine it probably looks like. Now for the catering. So they offer only free water, soft drink and coffee for the 2.5-hour flight, so I bought a few snacks. For $10 I bought this mountain goat lager, and to eat this $7.50 savoury nibbles and a $7.50 Mr. Lee Hong Kong street beef noodles, so in total it was $25. Now I'm not really a foodie, but I thought the nibbles needed more salt and the noodles were a bit bland. So while there certainly was more variety offered in direct comparison to Qantas on the same route, it was reasonably pricey and didn't taste great. About an hour later, the crew came through again with a trolley and offered complimentary drinks and food for purchase as well, although this time I just went with a tea. Now people often stop me in the street asking, what are all those bits and bobs on an Airbus A320's wings? So contain yourself while I answer this common question. On the front of the wing or the leading edge are the slats. These are essentially part of the wing's upper surface and nose that slide down. In contrast, some older airlines, such as the 747 you see here, have Kruger flaps, which is where the wing's nose isn't affected and a portion of the lower wing is rotated up and out from underneath. Essentially, both of these work to increase the wing size and therefore create more lift. Now let's spin around to the wings behind, also known as the trailing edge, with this footage from another A320 flight. Now these four canoes that you can see here are not fuel tanks like some suspect, but simply aerodynamic covers for the flap mechanism. So the flaps are a similar idea to the slats, but they're on the other end. Here you can see that the flaps extend prior to takeoff. They're a reasonably simple design here on the A320, but the much bigger 747, again for comparison's sake, has 3-part slotted flaps that increase the lift by up to 90%. Now while they do increase lift, they would reduce the top speed, so that's why they're all folded up and sleek when cruising and are only used during takeoff and landing. The winglet right at the end works to reduce aerodynamic drag by reducing the vortices that would otherwise be formed by the air above and below the wing clashing with each other. Now these coming up are known as spoilers or speed brakes, and in this situation they're slowing the aircraft down as it descends and prepares to land. And when on landing, you'll see them used again to slow the aircraft down. Now what's interesting is that if you look closely, you can actually see through the whole wing, so it just goes to show how thin the A320's wing is. Just in front of all those fuel hydraulic lines and electrical gizzards you can see there are the fuel tanks. And next to the spoilers here are the ailerons, which is one of the flight control surfaces to lift or depress the wing for a turn. And these little aerial looking things are static discharges or wicks. As a plane flies through air particles, it creates static electricity, which if it's not released gradually by these little wicks, would be released unpredictably and interfere with the radio communication. So there you go, now you know everything about an A320's wing. But after all that learning, it's time for a drink and to calm down. Things started to get a little greener as we started our descent into Broome. The town itself is on a bit of a peninsula next to Roebuck Bay, which has a fascinating history. Aboriginal people used it as a meeting place for thousands of years, and then in the 1800s it was well known for its pearls. In the 1900s it was a stop-off point for international and military flights, and now it's a marine park with incredible diversity in flora and fauna. In fact, there's actually dinosaur footprints, although I didn't get to see them this visit. So how was a flight, and how does it compare to Qantas with the same aircraft on the same route? The service was really friendly and energetic, as Virgin Australia always are. Now the catering is mixed, as there is obviously more options, but it was quite expensive and not particularly tasty. Qantas include the food, although it's fairly basic airplane food. It's handy having streaming in-flight entertainment, which is something QantasLink are only just starting to offer in a month or so. But like Qantas, there are no USB ports to charge your device, which might be an issue if you've got an iPhone that's more than 3 months old and been recently updated. The seat itself was fine and there's decent amounts of legroom, and that's also a major difference with QantasLink, who have different amounts of legroom in different seats, and some of them are really tight, which I'll show you in my video flying with him. Qantas also have the benefit of a lounge for the return flight from Broome as well. So there's positives and negatives of both, but make sure you check out my other vlog, Flying in the Opposite Direction, to decide for yourself. And finally, the price, which I can't directly compare as I booked my return flight with points, but from a quick Google, Virgin are usually cheaper, so that's another consideration as well. So with the money you've saved with a ticket, you could spend it on a decent meal in the terminal before you leave. And with the extra legroom on the Virgin aircraft, you may actually be able to feel your legs once you arrive in Broome as well. But otherwise, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the flight. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and check out my channel for many other aviation videos flying around Western Australia and the world. Thanks for watching.
Welcome to Broome. The time is 20 minutes past 2. For everyone's safety, please keep your seatbelt fastened. The R6 is clear until seatbelt signs have been switched on.